So I think most of these are really cool. Obviously we don't know what what's her face, the Songhai one does yet. Here we go. Oh, these are tiny. Blurry zoomed images. Woohoo! Right. So, Rome Warcrest. Bloodborne spell, summon a 1/2 Crestfallen with Zeal, provoke in front of your general. I think this card is very interesting and quite good. Like, we don't know if there's going to be Zeal or provoke payoff in the expansion. At the moment we have, what's his name? Golden Justicar, which, and Afterblaze, which is awesome. Like, this with Afterblaze is really good. Basically a Primus Shieldmaster, but you cycle a card. That's pretty strong. So I'm a fan of that. The fact that it only goes in front is going to be more of a limitation than is at first apparent. But, you know, usually that's the end towards the enemy, so that's kind of fine. Otherwise, just by itself, that's pretty good. Like, slow was always more annoying than it deserved to be. Same with Rock Pulverizer. Like, the card isn't very good, but in Gauntlet, it does usually take you a turn to chew through it. And he can do that every turn, with a smaller minion, but still, he holds one thing in place every turn. Vaguely similar to the Vanar General's stunning things. If your opponent is unable to reach the provoke minion with anything else to attack it, which, you know, maybe is useful if you're playing a provoke tribal deck. So I'm keen on this. I think I want to see it in Zoo. This with Holy Immolation is fully disgusting. Because, again, we're back to having, you know, I guess Blood Tear has always been available, but Blood Tear Immolation is really good. It's the best we have right now. And he always has a 1-mana minion, doesn't even need to spend a card on it. So that's really strong. Especially as your Bloodborne spell comes online on turn 3, when normally you get to 5 mana, either via a mana tile or by being on the draw. So you can essentially play Holy Immolation on curve just using his Bloodborne spell, which is really strong. Shidai Storm Blossom. So she generates a spell of some kind. Apparently there are 4 different ones that you get, I assume randomly, and they are 1-mana spells of their own. So someone on Reddit pointed out that her ability is basically Bloodborne spell, trigger your Arcanists twice. And I think that's spot on. I really want to play this with Arcanists. I want to play it. I love playing Trinity Wing in Songhai. It does everything you want. Like, the chip damage or removal is great. The healing is good for racing. The 4/4 flying body is obviously great. And giving your general a permanent attack buff is surprisingly good as well. Again, same thing for racing or for trading. Plus, of course, it triggers all your spell abilities 3 more times. So you end up with a hand refill that provides tempo, provides extra damage, provides extra synergy all in one package. And she does that without needing Bond, or needing you to spend 5 mana, or have a huge amount of space in your hand. I predict Zeal, Egg, Spell High, Sabotage expansion. I mean, that sounds pretty sweet. That sounds entertaining. So yeah, not knowing what her spells are, I assume it's something like, I'm just going to like wildly speculate. Deal damage, draw a card at end of turn, like heal some, and I don't know. I mean, maybe they'll be stronger than that. Maybe they'll actually be like the Trinity Oath ones, and sort of balanced out, air quotes, by the fact that they're more random. But I suspect they'll be a bit less powerful than that. The fact that you're getting 2 spell triggers is good enough for the spells to be a little weaker. Sifrin, Ascendant. Is a Vitruvian general, Bloodborne spell, given an enemy minion -2 attack until your next turn. This thing is disgusting, I think. Like, I have seen people saying this card is bad. This general is bad. No. That ability is really strong. Because it makes trading a real headache for your opponent, and very advantageous for you. It means that even if you have nothing on the board, you're still effectively healing 2 a turn when they're beating you in the face. And of course it synergizes with Zenri and Psychic Conduit, which we might finally see seeing some play with this thing. So all of these combined make me want to play a control deck with Sifrin. I want to play Zenri, or I guess the new one that's better. I want to play Conduit for the mid game. I want to play early minions that can trade and fight for the board. So, you know, probably obelisks and random dorks, Falkiers. And then I want to play, like, I might want Circle of Desiccation, because when you can stall this much, you can really bog down the game. And that's the sort of situation where Circle of Desiccation gets better. So I think Sifrin might be pretty interesting. The other thing is that his ability is quite powerful for you when trading. It's a nightmare for your opponent. You know how hard it is to play around Cassiva's pings when you've got a bunch of minions that she could potentially hit? And it's much easier when the Bloodborne spell goes on cooldown. He's like that, but even more so. Like, if you've got a bunch of minions, any of them could get shrunk and traded into if they're all in range. So planning out your combat maths and predicting exactly what your opponent's going to do is going to get very difficult on a clogged board. And of course, Duelyst is played on a timer. Your opponent only has so much time and mental attention to think through their plays. So I suspect against this guy, a lot of people are going to make misplays. And I don't mean like, oh, noobs are going to get it. I mean like everyone is going to. I am going to misplay against this card a lot. Because that is a lot to consider. And a lot to, oh yeah, damn, he could have done that and then traded. And it gets even worse where it's like they could use the Bloodborne spell and then have a Scion's First Wish. Anything like that, and the possibilities spiral out of control. You can't possibly consider all of that in 90 seconds. So I think he's going to get some value from being a headache as well. And I think he's going to be very strong. Maeve Skin Solder is an Abyssian general. Bloodborne spell, destroy a friendly minion to summon a 4/4 husk on its space. Deal 2 damage to your general. So I looked at this at first, I was like, well, normally that sort of effect needs Lilith's Bloodborne spell to be good, so maybe she'll be a bit bad. But I thought about it some more and realised that A, with Desolator, you have 5 mana, make a 4/4, hit your opponent for 2, costing you 0 cards. That's pretty good. B, that's a lot of tempo. Like, if you're playing random crap cards, right, which Abyssian has access to plenty of, you've got your Gloom Chasers, 6s, Wraithling Swarms, Inkling Surges, anything like that, then you'll end up with a lot of minions, which generates tempo. And then you can upgrade them. The Husks suffer from summoning sickness, they can't trade immediately, but being able to take a crap minion and turn it into something big on the cheap is great. Like, if you can get a 2 mana or a 3 mana 4/4, that's very strong. That's a lot of tempo. I suspect, you know, with this, you'll probably want Cryptographer, because going second, you can go Cryptographer Bloodborne spell and just play a 4/4 on turn 1 straight up. Right? Like, eat your heart out, Ghoulie or whatever. That's really strong. But I think her main strength is going to be the combo with Desolator in the late game. I think that's a really nice top end for a tempo deck when you've just got Deso and like Revenant probably as your finishers, and the rest of the deck is, you know, low curve tempo-y stuff, Spelljammers and whatnot. Powering out, you know, mostly a swarm strategy, but instead of going all in, going really wide and then being like, well, do they have the AoE or not? You commit to the board a little bit less and then take any opportunity you can to upgrade a random dork that maybe had a battle cry or as opening gambit even, or Dying Wish trigger into a 4/4. The other thing with her is that she's going to be this is probably Horror Burster's time to truly shine, right? Because this with Horror Burster is filthy, so I'm definitely trying that. Yeah, I don't think, have they said yet what the Variax version is going to be? I imagine it's something like destroy all your minions and replace them with 6/6s, maybe something like that. Like, create a 4/4 for each minion you control. Destroy an enemy minion and make a 4/4. That would be sweet. I mean, not for the opponent, but that would be a really nice, like, inversion. That'd be nice. Ragnora the Relentless. So actually, the first thing that leapt out to me on this card is like, is that female? Because I'm pretty sure they said there were only male Magmar. So I'm gonna have to check the codex and see if they've like changed that, because that would be quite cool. Like, it always weirds me out when there's a fantasy universe and they're like, oh, this race is entirely male or entirely female. It's like, that, why? It's just so you can stereotype them. It doesn't make any sense. So I like the idea of that as an aside. As the actual card, so her, I assume, maybe. Bloodborne spell makes a Ripper egg nearby your general. So I'm gonna... I imagine you can place it because randomly positioned eggs would be a bit rubbish. Very unsatisfying to play with. And I assume the Ripper is something like a 3/3 or a 4/4. Maybe it has some ability. Maybe it has Rebirth itself. Each of her minions transform into Rev. They might actually do that, yeah. Destroy a minion, make a Spectral Revenant. I mean, that would be probably more powerful than the other two, but that would be appropriate, I think. Yeah, so Ragnora, I think... So there's egg shenanigans, right? You can play it with Moor and Kerr and Wild Inceptor and stuff. I think that's going to be an entirely valid playstyle. I think I want to try her... Try them. Potentially with... just in a zoo deck. Like Ragnora Zoo with Godhammer. Sounds great. Spam her minions, play eggs, protect those eggs by having them be behind a wall of trash. Eggs hatch into Rippers, all as well. And then you can play like Wild Inceptor as well, as, you know, kind of like a Keeper of the Veil in a zoo deck, right? You 5 mana, you Bloodborne spell, Wild Inceptor to get a 3/3 and like a 4/4 Rebirth or something that can attack straight away. That's pretty similar to playing Keeper of the Veil, when you think about it, in Keep of Earth. So, it might actually be that. Like, depending on how big the Ripper is, Wild Inceptor on a Ripper might just be the way Ragnora's gameplay works. Like, that might be the main plan. I don't really know. Next up, Elena Cryobite. Aside from having a name that sounds like she's out of The Incredibles, Elena has Bloodborne spell, stun a nearby enemy minion. This card is bonkers. This is going to be so annoying to play against. The obvious combo is with Ice Shatter Gauntlet, and I think the place I want to see that is in a mid-range deck. So, mid-range Fae is already a thing, but Vanar's kit lends themselves more to, like, shenanigans, because they have, you know, ramp and cycling and lots of spells and stall. But Aspect of the Fox is not really a great card in a mid-range deck most of the time, because you want to properly trade your cards for their cards, right? Instead you're only trading partially, like you're giving them a 3/3 in exchange for their creature, even if it's at a large tempo gain. With Elena, you can play very efficient, potentially multi-for-1 removal in the shape of Ice Shadow Gauntlet and her. And I think in order to escort her safely into the enemy's face, where she can get all this value, you want to play just like mid-range creatures like the Sunsteel Defenders or Primus Shield Masters, you know, big-ish dudes that can protect her, eat smaller creatures or things that aren't in range for the stun ability, body block, and pressure the opponent. Elena Cryobite sounds like Guardians of the Galaxy. That makes sense. Or like... I really think of her as being in The Incredibles. Just like... She sounds like a parody superhero. They use Chrysalis Burst to procreate, so it makes sense they're all male. I don't know. I don't think the eggs are actually Magmar eggs. I think they're all male because they don't procreate. They're like, there's just 13 of them. And there was like some kind of brood mother that actually gave birth to them, because that's how their physiology works. I think they're basically like ancient wise worker drones, from what I remember from the Codex. I don't know. I don't think I've actually read the latter half of it. I need to catch up. Hey, Eskel, thanks for joining. We're just going through digressing to talk about the generals. So I think they're pretty interesting. Yeah, so I think I want to see Elena with, you know, you play your Frigid Corona, maybe Cryptographer, right? Cryptographer is a 3-mana 2/2 that stuns an enemy minion. It's pretty good. It's like slightly worse for Repulsor Beast, but the fact that you can combo it with Ice Shatter Gauntlet makes it good again. There might also be other stun payoffs. You know, like, we could see something like a creature that draws a card if they have a stunned minion. If it's biggish, that could be really good for mid-range. basically just Cold Wraith from Hearthstone. Like, that could be a card. I would play that in this deck. You'd probably want stuff like Grove Lion, because again, she's going to be up in the enemy's face. Maybe Concealing Shroud if you wanted to get really techy, but I think you mostly just want to focus on big minions. Maybe some equipment as well. Like stunning enemy minions and then that can threaten your equipment, and then using artifacts, and then using the artifacts to kill things that are easier targets. Seems like quite a good idea. So I think she could be pretty interesting to design decks around. The fact that she has to be next to the enemy to stun it is an important limitation, both on her being massively unfun for the opponent, but also on deck building with her. You can't just be like, that's stunned, I'm going to sit over here and camp, that's stunned again. With all these new generals, it looks like tempo is going to be all important this expansion. It's interesting you say that. I think... So, tempo is like Duelyst's thing, right? Duelyst is the tempo-iest game ever. Especially as the power level goes up and up. Over time, as the card pool expands. But I think, like, a lot of these generals are very good at countering tempo. Like, this one makes Provoke, which gets in the way. This one stuns. Obviously that blunts your assault. This one reduces attack power, which stalls really well. I think Mayev's a tempo card, but it's not like you can just jam it on turn 1 all the time. It's not like the old Windblade ad. It was like, here's my 4-3. With, you know, basically no downside. And even Ragnora requires effort. So I feel like Ragnora will play out more akin to a sort of like explosive keeper deck, or like a Zoohorn deck where they sort of do nothing for a bit and then all of a sudden it's massive dudes everywhere. I don't know whether you play them with Godhammer, but I'd want to try that. And I want to try it with Wild and Scepter, possibly in the same deck, possibly separately. So I think quite a few of these cards could be suitable for slow. I have also just realised that Mayev goes really well with Mindlathe. So Mayev control with Mindlathe, although I guess she takes 2 damage, so you lose an extra charge on the lathe, which kind of sucks. Still, that's interesting. That means you never have to draw a combo piece to use with it. You can always just play your Mindlathe, kill their unit, make a 4-4. I mean, as removal spells go, right? Excuse me, you take a bunch of damage, but you kill their unit and make a 4-4. That's pretty strong. So that could be interesting. I actually feel the exact opposite. Vet, Vanna, and Ragnora all reward having a board state when your BVS comes available and seem potent. I mean, yeah, I'd agree with that. Well, I don't know about Elena. Like, she can look after herself pretty well. But yeah, this, Sifrin is better when you have units that can trade. But he also, like, it snowballs a tempo advantage, but so do a lot of cards, right? So do minions, and buff spells, and removal spells, and general attacks themselves. Whereas Sifrin can also blunt an enemy tempo advantage by reducing their ability to trade into your minions. You can develop a new minion. Like, say, it's your turn 3, you're going second. You're playing him. Your opponent's got a 4-4 or a 5. They've got a Thunderhold or something. You could develop a minion. You can, say, play a Primus Shieldmaster, or I don't know, what did Van have for 4 drops? Whatever. You can even play like a Wasteland Wraith. And just minus the enemy attack. So you take less damage while your Wraith goes off. Or to play around a movement ability. Because when your opponent's head on board, you can protect yourself and protect your minions at the same time. He's actually really good at reversing a tempo advantage, which I think is interesting. There's not very many abilities like that in Duelyst. And although Sifrin's ability is good for trading, it doesn't allow you to trade up the same way Roar does. Like, Roar is so good because you can take your 2-drop and trade it for their 4-drop. With Sifrin, they'll just bounce off each other. Or you can make your 2-drop eat their 2-drop and not die. Those are very different abilities. And if you're trading evenly and leaving yourself with small minions behind, that have taken a couple less points of damage. That's not as dominant tempo-wise as roaring and trading up. Because when you're, often one way of blunting a tempo offensive is just to play a bigger minion than your opponent can deal with. If you're playing against Arjun, that's really hard because roar lets them trade almost anything. If you're playing against Sifrin, he might shrink your minion, but he still can't necessarily kill it any more easily than he could before, especially if all his minions are small, they'll still die. If you just played like a golem or something, like a massive golem, it'll still deal significant damage. Whereas, on the other hand, if you're the Sifrin player and you're behind, you can shrink your opponent's units to try and ensure that you stick something, or just take less face damage if that's where they go. So I think actually, I think there's a real effort here to slow the game down a bit, I feel, which is good. I like that. The meta is really healthy right now. It's probably the best meta we've ever had in Duelyst. So I'm not feeling the need to go like, oh my god, we have to slow this down to aggro everywhere. But at the same time, it is nice to see cards that fight back against the tempo-iness of the game in general. The flip side, of course, is that if they slow the game down too much, it becomes a grind fest all the time and it's really boring. But I very much doubt that will happen. There are far too many combos and trump cards for that to be too much of a concern. Probably Flame Mantra will be even stronger next expansion, I'm concerned. Maybe. As long as there's decent healing, it's not too bad, right? Mantra is not particularly strong to start with. It's kind of a weak, high rolly deck. Like, we lost to it earlier because it was a bad matchup more than anything.